Hey everyone, good morning. It is 8 a.m. It is the new year. It is January 4th. And it is time for another edition of Mantra Monday. Yay! So, we are doing Bhagavad Gita 11, 12, 11, 13, and 11, 14 today. We're doing 3 verses in a row. So we are right at pretty much at the beginning of the universal form. There are 55 verses in this chapter, and I'm grouping them together. So if you're tuning in for the first time, welcome. If you are not tuning in for this first time and you're here again, thank you so much. If you're watching the replay, fabulous. Okay, so this is a conversation again between Prince Arjuna and Krishna, and as the chapter is called the universal form, Krishna here is revealing his universal form, his Vishvarupa, and now we're getting the reaction and an attempt at a description of something that is really extraordinary and overwhelming. Here we go. Verse 12. Divi sūrya-sahasrasya bhaved yugapad utthitā yadi sadṛśī sa syād tasya mahātmanaḥ. Tatraika-sthaṁ jagat kṛtsnaṁ pravibhaktam anekadhā apaśyad deva-devasya śarīre pāṇḍavas tadā. Tadā vismayāviṣṭo hṛṣṭa-romā dhanañ-jayaḥ praṇamya śirasā devaṁ kṛtāñjalir abhāṣata. Okay, so that was those 3 verses together. Now I'm going to break them down one by one. Divi, in the sky, Surya, of suns, sahasrasya, of many thousands, bhaved, there were, yugapad, simultaneously, utthitā, present, yadi, if, light, sadṛśī, like that, that, syād, might be. Hey, good morning. Bhāsas, effulgence, tasya, of him, mahātmanaḥ, the great Lord. Okay, so now I'm going to do the translation for text 12, which is as follows. If hundreds of thousands of suns were to rise at once into the sky, their radiance might resemble the effulgence of the Supreme Person in that universal form. Purport. What Arjuna saw was indescribable, yet Sanjaya is trying to give a mental picture of that great revelation to Dhritarashtra. Neither Sanjaya nor Dhritarashtra was present, but Sanjaya, by the grace of Vyasa, could see whatever happened. Thus he now compares the situation, as far as it can be understood, to an imaginable phenomenon, i.e. thousands of suns. Om Gyantirmanandasya Gina Gina Shalakaya Chakshur Unmiritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Namo Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesha Sunyavari Paschita Deshatarine. So this is the personal form of the Lord revealing the impersonal aspect of himself. In other words, the aspect of himself that we see all the time. The aspect of himself that we're accustomed to, having been here for such a long time and being forgetful of what our original relationship is. And to establish himself again as actually God. He is revealing this universal form, which is compared to the rising of hundreds of thousands of suns all at the same time. Because remember, the soul is self-effulgent. So the Supreme Soul, what to speak of the Supreme Soul, how self-effulgent is the Lord. So you get an idea of this concept when you see paintings of different saintly persons, right? Of course, Jesus is the person that we're most familiar with, who is always depicted as having this kind of glow around him. You know, they'll have like a circle. You'll see that around Mary. You'll see that around Jesus, or even St. John the Baptist, or any of the saints, that they have this, the artist is trying to depict this effulgence that is emanating from them. So that is because the soul actually is self-effulgent. So like father, like son, right? Like daughter, like father. So this is an attempt to describe what it was like for Arjuna to suddenly see this magnificent display of everything in the universe all in the same place. So there is a mention here in the purport again about Sanjay or Sanjaya. We mentioned Sanjay last week. Sanjay is the personal secretary of Maharaj Dhritarashtra. So remember, Maharaj Dhritarashtra, he is the father and the head of the dynasty of the opposing side. There's the Pāṇḍavas, and then there's the Kurus. So the Kurus are the cousin brothers and all their family members that are trying to wrest the kingdom and control away from the Pāṇḍavas by many underhanded means. So because Sanjay was blessed by his spiritual master Vyasadeva, I'll remind you again, is the compiler of the Vedas. He was given this ability to be able to see remotely what was going on in the battlefield, what was being said. And so he is relaying back to Dhritarashtra, who was unable to go on the battlefield because the king was blind and also probably a bit feeble at this point in time, what is going down. So Sanjay is, again, comparing the situation as far as it can be understood to an imaginable phenomenon, i.e. thousands of suns. So we've all seen the sunrise and how it blinds our sight, how it's difficult to take in, as beautiful as it may be. So just imagine, try and imagine that you are seeing thousands, not just thousands, but hundreds of thousands of suns rising all at the same time. That, Sanjay has said, might give you a little idea of the majesty and the wonder of this display of the Vishvarupa. Okay, moving on to text 13. Tatraika-sthaṁ jagat kṛtsnaṁ pravibhaktam anekadhā apaśyad deva-devasya śarīre pāṇḍavas tadā. I'm going to sing this. Tatraika-sthaṁ jagat kṛtsnaṁ pravibhaktam anekadhā apaśyad deva-devasya śarīre pāṇḍavas tadā. Translation: Tatra, there, eka-sthaṁ, in one place, jagat, the universe, kṛtsnaṁ, complete, pravibhaktam, divided, anekadhā, into many, apaśyad, could see, deva-devasya, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, śarīre, in the universal form, pāṇḍavas, Arjuna, tadā, at that time. Translation: at that time, Arjuna could see in the universal form of the Lord the unlimited expansion of the universe, situated in one place, although divided into many, many thousands. So I'm going to read that again. At that time, Arjuna could see in the universal form of the Lord the unlimited expansions of the universe situated in one place, although divided into many, many thousands. So it's making me think about what it's kind of like to look through a kaleidoscope. You're looking at one thing through a kaleidoscope, but it's reproducing that one image again and again and again. And of course, it's got that, very cool effect where, you can kind of see that it's reproduced and reproduced and reproduced, within each reproduction of that image in the kaleidoscope. So, of course, the kaleidoscope is limited, but I think that kind of gives you an idea of what Arjuna was seeing. He was seeing unlimited expansions of the universe situated in one place, although divided into many, many thousands. So the breakdown is the word tatra there is very significant. It indicates that both Arjuna and Krishna were sitting on the chariot when Arjuna saw the universal form. Others on the battlefield could not see this form because Krishna gave the vision only to Arjuna. Arjuna could see in the body of Krishna many thousands of planets. As we learn from Vedic scriptures, there are many universes and many planets. Some of them are made of earth, some are made of gold, some are made of jewels, some are very great, some are not so great, etc. Sitting on his chariot, Arjuna could see all these, but no one could understand what was going on between Arjuna and Krishna. So this is a great reveal that Krishna is giving to Arjuna, because Arjuna is Krishna's friend. He is approaching the Lord in a friendly mood. He's approaching the Lord in a submissive mood. He wants to hear from the Lord. He wants to be enlightened. And he wants to share that enlightenment with everyone else who is going to come in the future and read this divine conversation, the Bhagavad Gita, as it is between the two of them. And astronomy is a big obsession, right? It's a big thing. Every time there's a full moon, or we just had the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, anytime there's anything like that, or an asteroid going through space, people are posting about that. People are pulling out their telescopes, and they're eager to try and see and try and understand what other life and what other life forms may exist out there in the universe, or as Arjuna is seeing here in the multiverses, to hope that we are not alone. So no, we're not alone. And there's great variety in the different universes. So here on this planet, we have a planet that is made of earth, and that has a body of water that is, we have salt oceans. But on other planets, it's different. So, for example, here, Prabhupada is explaining some are made of gold, some are made of jewels, some are very, very large, some are very, very small. And so Arjuna was able to see all these different things going on in the one place on the chariot. Again, also, you see that Krishna, or Arjuna here, is being addressed as Pāṇḍava. So again, the distinction that he is on the opposing side. He is not a Kuru, he is a Pāṇḍava. That is because he is one of the sons of Maharaj Pandu. So this is a very, very, very exclusive thing that's going on in the middle of this battlefield. And this is all to encourage Arjuna, because Arjuna, remember, has been quite disheartened and quite upset about what is about to take place. He doesn't want to fight his family members. He's never wanted to fight his family members. He's wanted to live in harmony with his family members. But unfortunately, his family members don't want to do it. So now it is taking a huge, huge step back philosophically. The curtain of the workings of the universe are being pulled back for Arjuna to be able to see exactly how the mechanics are working, and that he is actually small, but that he does have a role to play within the workings of the universe, and that it would be better for him to actually act on his duty and to participate in that rather than hang back. Because as Krishna is going to reveal as this chapter goes on, it's going to happen anyway. All these things have already been set in motion, based on the choices of the individuals involved, right? At any time, the Kurus could have decided, okay, you know what, no, we don't want to fight with you, let's make a truce, and things could have gone a different way. But that's not the way they went. So this is far out. It can help us when we are in a difficult situation or in a situation we don't understand, to try and step back philosophically and understand how things are working, and why they're working in a certain way. Karma is a very, very complex thing, but in my mind, at least, this is a kind of a glimpse, into those larger workings of the universe, things that have been set in motion. Okay, so now text 14. Tadā sa vismayāviṣṭo hṛṣṭa-romā dhanañ-jayaḥ praṇamya śirasā devaṁ kṛtāñjalir abhāṣata. So, I'm going to sing this. Tadā sa vismayāviṣṭo hṛṣṭa-romā dhanañ-jayaḥ praṇamya śirasā devaṁ kṛtāñjalir abhāṣata. Word for word translation. Tadā, thereafter, sa, he, vismayāviṣṭo, being overwhelmed with wonder, hṛṣṭa-romā, with his bodily hair standing on end due to his great ecstasy, dhanañ-jayaḥ, Arjuna, praṇamya, offering obeisances, śirasā, with a head, devaṁ, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, kṛtāñjalir, with folded hands, abhāṣata, began to speak. This is ecstatic. So now we're going to get into the different bodily symptoms that Arjuna is experiencing while he's taking all this in. And these are bona fide bodily symptoms. Sometimes we experience these things also. Probably not to the degree of Arjuna, but what is interesting and what provides a benchmark for actual advancement or not in the science of self-realization is that there are different bodily symptoms that are associated with different levels of realization. So there is another book called the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that is otherwise known as the Nectar of Devotion, and that was written by Srila Rupa Goswami. And it catalogs actually all the different bodily symptoms that a person can have as they elevate in awareness and in spiritual connection, as they become, when they are purified, different things that we can experience. So, here's the translation. Then, bewildered and astonished, his hair standing on end, Arjuna bowed his head to offer obeisances with folded hands and began to pray with the Supreme Lord. Purport. Once the divine vision is revealed, the relationship between Krishna and Arjuna changes immediately. Before, Krishna and Arjuna had a relationship based on friendship, but here, after the revelation, Arjuna is offering obeisances with great respect and with folded hands. He is praying to Krishna. praṇamya śirasā devaṁ. Great devotees see Krishna as the reservoir of all relationships. In the scriptures, there are 12 basic kinds of relationships mentioned, and all of them are present in Krishna. It is said that he is the ocean of all relationships exchanged between two living entities, between the gods or between the Supreme Lord and his devotees. Here, Arjuna was inspired by the relationship of wonder, and in that wonder, although he was by nature very sober, calm, and quiet, he became ecstatic. His hair stood up, and he began to offer obeisances unto the Supreme Lord with folded hands. He was not, of course, afraid. He was affected by the wonders of the Supreme Lord. The immediate context is wonder. His natural loving relationship was overwhelmed by wonder, and thus he reacted in this way. Well, this is a wonderful description. So, here we go. Here it is explained that, once Arjuna saw this display, which, as best as can be understood, was like seeing hundreds and thousands of suns rise all at the same time, and also seeing it divided into thousands of parts, and being able to see all the different planets, and there'll be more, and the different varieties of planets all in one place. Arjuna is, if it were us, we'd probably have our mouth hanging open. Arjuna is a little bit more cultured, so his mouth isn't hanging open. He has his hands folded, right? Namaste, namaskar, in respect. And his hair is literally standing up. So this is a symptom of ecstasy. Yes, sometimes when hair is standing up on end, it can be a symptom of fear. Sometimes you see that with dogs, for example. If they're really afraid of something, all their hairs stand on end. But Prabhupada makes a distinction here that is not the case for Arjuna. He is not afraid. He is in the rasa of wonderment. So it's explained here also that there are 12 basic kinds of relationships that are mentioned, and all of them are present in Krishna. So I should probably get up and get the other book and dig that out for you. But there are principal relationships with Krishna, and then there are kind of like the new there are variations on that relationship. So just to be clear, Arjuna, his relationship with Krishna is one of friendship. Remember, we talked about Mother Yasoda. We talked about Krishna's parents, right? The devotees who are in that role as his parents. So there's the parental rasa. Then there is the rasa of neutrality, right? That is like the grass and the creepers and the flowers and the living entities and so on that have this type of relationship with Krishna. Then there is madhurya rasa. That is the rasa of conjugal love, which is really a culmination and a summation of all the different rasas, all the different moods, because it contains everything, right? I mean, we understand this. We can understand this. It isn't so hard to understand. So, when you're a buddy with someone, when you're a friend with someone, there's a certain mood there. When you have a parent-child relationship, if you're a parent, you know what I'm talking about. There's a feeling of a lot of protection and all of that. But when you are in a loving relationship or conjugal relationship with someone, all those emotions that you have, that feeling of friendship, that feeling of protection, that feeling of, passionate love, feelings of anger, feelings of lamentation, feelings of joy. So it's all wrapped up into one bundle. So just going to make mention of that. I really kind of want to dig out that book for you. But suffice it to say, he is the ocean of all relationships exchanged between two living entities, between the gods or the demigods. These are just simply living entities that have longer lifespans and have been granted, due to their pious activities, greater abilities to manipulate the material energy than we have as humans, or between the Supreme Lord and his devotees. So this is a very inspirational moment. It's explained here that Arjuna was by nature very sober. You know, he wasn't a person to be, he wasn't easily excitable. You know, he was very in control of his senses in many ways, in spite of him being a kshatriya. And normally he was very calm, because he was always considering what to do and what not to do. This was his nature. And he was more of a quiet personality. He wasn't necessarily a boisterous personality like his brother Bhima. So he was not, of course, afraid. He was affected by the wonders of the Supreme Lord. The immediate context is wonder. His natural loving friendship was overwhelmed by wonder, and thus he reacted in this way. Wow, so this was beautiful. Let me go and see if I can find the breakdown of these other relationships in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhus. I'm going to have to go next door and get my book from my library. Hang on. Be right back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I found it. This is the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Of course, I don't have the paper cover on it anymore, but this was written by Srila Rupa Goswami. It's the complete science of Bhakti Yoga. And so part 1 talks about the characteristics of devotional service and the stages of devotion, how to discharge. I mean, this is really a manual. Part 2 talks about the transcendental mellows, Krishna's qualities, and so on and so forth. Part 3 talks about neutral love of God, transcendental affection, that servitude, that mood, different impetuouses. It talks about indifference and separation. It talks about reverential devotion, fraternal devotion. So that would be the mood that Arjuna is in. It talks about parenthood. It talks about service and conjugal love. And then it talks about different kinds of ecstasies. Laughing ecstasy, astonishment and chivalry, compassion and anger, dread and ghastliness. It talks about the mixing of rasas. It talks about further analysis of mixed rasas, perverted expression of mellows, and then there's concluding words. So, I don't know. I'm going to admit that I do not know this book well enough to be able to jump right to the part that talks about the breakdown of the 12 different moods, because normally I only read the first half. I haven't really read so much the second half because, you know, I'm not there yet. But this talk today has inspired me to get into it a little bit more. Okay, wait. Let me see here. Here we go. Chapter 35. I think this could shed some light on it. Neutral love of God. This is in part 3. Srila Rupa Goswami offers his respectful prayers to the eternal Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is always so beautiful, and for whom the pure devotees are always engaged in loving transcendental service. This third division of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu describes the 5 primary kinds of devotional service, namely neutrality, servitude, fraternity, parenthood, and conjugal love. These 5 items will be very elaborately explained here, and thus they have been figuratively described as the 5 waves on the western side of this ocean of the nectar of devotion. Amazing. Wow. So this just kind of gets into a breakdown. I'll just read a little bit of it because it's interesting. When one is actually able to maintain the transcendental position, his stage is called neutrality in devotional service. Some great sages have attained this neutral position by practicing austerity, penance, and meditation to control the senses. Such sages are generally called mystic yogis, and in most cases they are inclined to appreciate the spiritual pleasure of the impersonal feature of the absolute truth. They are practically unaware of the transcendental pleasure derived from personal contact with the Supreme Godhead. Actually, the transcendental pleasure derived in association with the Supreme Person is far greater than the pleasure derived from impersonal Brahman realization, because of the direct meeting with the eternal form of the Lord. Impersonalists do not directly derive the transcendental pleasure of association with the Lord by hearing of his pastimes. As such, the impersonalist cannot derive any relishable transcendental pleasure from the topics of Bhagavad Gita in which the Lord is personally talking with Arjuna. The basic principle of their impersonal attitude does not allow them the transcendental pleasure which is relished by a devotee whose basic principle of understanding is the Supreme Person. The impersonalistic commentary on Bhagavad Gita is therefore disastrous, because without understanding the transcendental pleasure of the Gita, the impersonalist wants to interpret it in his own way. If an impersonalist can, however, come in contact with a pure devotee, his transcendental position can be changed for greater elevation. Great sages are therefore recommended to worship the form of the Lord in order to achieve that highest transcendental pleasure. Well, I will bless you and I will leave you with that.